Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome all of you to today's Gopher Solutions webinar. My name is Tabor Sawatsky. For those of you who are new to our webinar series, this is a monthly webinar focusing on a variety of physical education subjects and topics. Past webinar topics have included PE teachers presenting on specific activities like assessment, fitness, classroom management, and PE advocacy. Past presenters have included Dr. Robert Pangrazi, Dr. John Medina, and Jean Blades. Our presenters have done a great job of bringing useful topics and information to the field of physical education. Our webinars will almost always occur the third week of the month. All attendees of today's webinar will receive a certificate of participation for 1 hour of educational credit. Also today, all attendees will be entered to win our Active and Healthy Schools Activities Card School Pack. These are compact cards that provide clear, concise, step-by-step instructions for organizing your playground into activity zones and also for quick classroom activity breaks. Different sets are organized into K through 2, 3 and 4, and 5 through 6. This set of activity cards is valued at $619. Today's webinar is titled Boost Student Learning with Classroom Activity with Kim Bevel. Today, Kim will discuss how classroom activity positively affects students' learning process. Before I introduce Kim, I wanted to mention that you will have the chance to ask questions during the presentation. Your questions are only visible to me, the moderator, so feel free to ask any questions you might have during the presentation. Questions can be typed in the questions area on the right side of your screen at any time during the webinar, and again, those questions are only visible to me, the moderator. We'll accumulate the questions throughout the presentation, and we'll have a chance to address your questions with Kim at the end of the presentation. Today I have the pleasure of introducing our presenter, Kim Bevel. Kim is the owner of Gray Matter Education Consulting. She is a highly respected keynote speaker, conference organizer, staff developer, and graduate level instructor. She was a high school history and IB psychology teacher for 14 years, but eventually joined forces with educators who strive to stop the dropout phenomenon. To bring meaningful change in education, Kim has insisted on training educators on the applicable neuroscience and the instructional strategies that work for anyone with a brain. Be ready to think outside the box. Participants consistently report feeling a new passion, purpose, and inspiration to new endeavors. Learn more about her course offerings at www.kimbevel.com. At this time, I will turn it over to our presenter, Kim. It's all yours.
Well, thank you very much. I want to welcome everybody to an afternoon session of learning after I know that you have all taught a full entire day at school and you're probably exhausted. I just want you to know I get it. I was a teacher. I've been in education for 25 years now, but was a teacher for 14 of them, and I know that there is no level of exhaustion like you have after a day of teaching, or especially in the middle of spring break or getting ready for spring break or just getting back from spring break. But that brings me to a challenge that I want to throw out there to you. My challenge is this. My challenge is that even though you're exhausted, I want to ask that you focus on what you focus on. I want you to think about, where's your focus? I want you to think about, in your time with me, where are you paying attention? And here's the challenge. Stay with me. Can you stay with me? I've got about an hour with you guys, and I want every single minute of it. I want you to pay attention to where your attention is for this time, because what research tells us about the brain is you only remember that which you pay attention to. You don't pay attention to it, you don't remember it, which actually I think explains a lot. Second challenge, I want you to notice where your energy is now. It's after school. It's in the afternoon. I want you to notice where's your energy level now, and I'm going to ask you at the end, where's your energy level? Because probably if you guys are normal human beings, you're sitting down, you have 2 or 3 things out in front of you that you're going to work on while you listen to this webinar. That's my guess anyway. If you're innocent, then you're totally forgiven. But if you're normal, like most people right now, we all try to multitask. The problem with multitasking is we lose our focus, we lose our attention, and our memory and our recall is compromised, as well as some studies that suggest that our mood and our energy will change, not just our level of efficiency when we're multitasking. Third challenge, I want to know this. I want to know, could you please be thinking about what kind of a change would you make? Now, I imagine most of you are in the world of PE. Most of you are physical educators. But I'm not. I'm not a PE teacher. I go in and I work with people in education. I go in and I talk to people who give me this weird look because I was a history teacher, you guys. You know what we do in history. We have you sit down, we have you sit in rows, and we like to tell you lots of stuff, and I'm no exception, I'll be honest with you. It's just that it doesn't work like I thought it would. And so there I was after years and years of planning what I thought were the coolest, most wonderful, effective strategies. You guys, this is the best history lesson ever in a history of lessons. This is the best psychology lesson in the history of psych lessons, only they would sit there and look at me, mouth half open, eyes glazed over, and they look like they really couldn't care less. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. This is the best stuff in the world. So finally, about 12 years ago, 10 years ago, I thought, there's got to be a better way. And so I did this bizarre thing at the time. I said, all right, everybody, you're all going to get up. I want you to get up and I want you to move. I'm right in the middle of, I don't know, a lecture on World War I, when they all acted like it wasn't really important. And I thought, yes, it is important. I have to convince them. And it occurred to me they couldn't be moved because they weren't moving. And they had spent a whole entire day of not moving. So here's my third challenge to you. My third challenge is, what if? What if you bring in a change, not just to your classroom? What if you bring in a change, not just to your workplace, but what if you bring a change into your home? And you start the idea and you start the movement in your school, in your district, in your community, in your state that says, what if we get our students up and moving? If we get them up and moving, is it going to make a change to these things called test scores that we're told we don't have in the United States? What if we get people up and we get them moving and it makes a change to our depression rates? Because we're told right now that 25% of everyone in this country is on an antidepressant. What we know is people have a hard time getting up, getting moving, and fueling their own energy. What if getting up and moving is what is going to allow us to make this fundamental change? If we can do that in 1 hour, talk about ideas and ways in which we make that change, then I say it's an hour that's worth it, because you guys are educators, and every single hour that you have is precious. Every single hour. So I'm going to get started now, but only after you do this. Look around at your desk, look around in your environment. I want you to find something like a ball. I want you to find a beanbag. I want you to find something you could potentially toss. Because I'm going to, I said a beanball. A beanbag, I want you to find something you can toss, because I want to show you what happens in your brain when you toss a ball, when you move. Even if you just get some Kleenexes, I want you to have something in your hand that you can use. At this moment, I want everybody to stand up wherever you are. Standing up increases blood flow from 5 to 7%, and I'll take it. It increases oxygenation and allows us to focus and pay attention. I need your focus. I need your pay attention. Here we go. It's time to start. I want you to notice what happens when you just get up and move, because you see, brains are meant to move. Only organisms that actually move from place to place even have one. Dr. Rady tells the story of the sea squirt. This sea squirt swims around like a tadpole with a nerve cord attached, and he swims around. It's in charge of his movement. What this little sea squirt is supposed to do, his whole entire job is, when he grows up, he's supposed to look for a place to attach and not move. He is supposed to attach permanently to a rock, a ship, a barnacle, at which point the rest of this story sounds like a Stephen King novel. He now begins to gradually digest and absorb his own brain because it's no longer needed. It's no longer moving. You see, if only things that move actually have a brain, without movement, we don't need the brain. We begin to digest it. What does that mean about our history of being in a classroom where we don't let our students move? I know what it meant in mine. It meant that by 7th hour, my kids were absolutely digesting their own brains. Gosh, they were just little tiny baby monsters. And all I can think is this. That's why now we have all the research that says, here's why movement, here's why fitness, here's why getting up and doing things that require balance and coordination, because moving is essential to brain function. And I said brain function, not just academics, not just recall, brain function. Those are moods, that's anxiety levels. And neurologists have an opinion about education, just like everybody. Everyone has an opinion about education. We need to fix education by doing this, that, or the other. Neurologists say this, hey, let's address academics by getting our kids physically fit. Because you see, physical fitness correlates with learning, memory, concentration, mood, controlling our moods, good mood, bad mood, and they all affect academic performance. Research we now have says physical activity enhances each. We get our kids up, we get our kids moving, we get them physically fit, and those things change. And not just our kids. This is everyone with a brain. If this hour is just about students, look at the impact that we're going to miss. I think we've got to talk about how to help educators feel better. You guys, I happen to think that being an educator is the hardest job on earth, and it's gotten harder and harder in the last few years because everybody tells us, oh, well, you guys aren't doing a good job because you don't have the standardized test scores. Like, what? You got to be kidding me. What if getting up and getting physically fit gives us our test scores back? What if in the last 10 to 15 to 20 years that this country slowly lost their fitness levels? We also failed to thrive and failed to hit our grade level. And what we're told is because of teachers, we're not getting it right. But getting them up and getting them moving again, and not just PE teachers, every teacher, history teachers, psych teachers, math teachers, chemistry teachers, and not just first grade teachers or 8th grade teachers, but 12th grade teachers, and not just high school, but in college. How many of us almost died when we were in college because we just sat for hour after hour after hour digesting our own brain? Neurological psychology is finally now giving us the information that says, get up and get moving. But everybody has to understand there are 3 types of movement. Every single teacher, every single parent needs to know there are 3 types of movement. 1, you get physically fit. 2, you get moving every 20 minutes. And 3, we have balance and coordination movements. Number 1 is what everybody gets now. It's so cool to be teaching this now. You know, 10 years ago, I was standing up saying we need to get our kids up and get them moving in class, and people would say, what? Today, brain breaks. Today, across the United States, people are saying, oh, yeah, we need to do some brain breaks. And here's why. Because getting our kids up and getting them physically fit allows them to have a sustainable attention and to improve their long-term health and memory. For the rest of our lives, getting up and moving allows us to have some kind of a health and definitely increase in our mental well-being. Number 2, daily. What this means is every single day in every single class, we allow our kids to move every 20 minutes. In any kind of direct instruction, we get them up and we get them moving. When you get them up and get them moving every 20 minutes, it allows for an immediate change in their short-term energy and allows them to focus. Now, I want you to focus with me. I want you to stay with me right here in present time, because what we know is Stanford University does research that says the moment I tell you to come to present time, your serotonin levels increase and your stress level comes down. That allows you to focus and pay attention and increase your recall. Number 3 type of movement is specialized movements. Specialized movements used to be called cross-lateral activities. They used to be called crossing the midline. Today, Harvard studies them. Harvard's calling it crosstalk, where the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere integrate information together. What we know about this is kids who don't have crosstalk, kids who don't have a well-developed motor skill, aren't on grade level. I want to test your crosstalk right now. Everybody, I think you're already standing. If you sat back down, stand back up. I want you to stand on your right foot. What you should feel is your right foot moving back and forth. It's looking for stability right now. It means your left and right hemisphere are working to integrate incoming information. That's balance. That's coordination. As we age, we lose our balance and our coordination. But it's good news too, because the more you use your balance and the more you have to balance on one foot or walk on a balance beam, whatever it is you're going to do, the more you increase your blood flow in your frontal cortex, the more you increase the neurological integration in your right and left hemisphere. And it happens quickly. Within a day or two or three, you'll notice a difference in your balance. 3 different types of moves. You can get our students physically fit. We can get them to move every 20 minutes in every single class. And the more specialized, the more complex, the more difficult to move, the more we have to use our balance and our coordination, the better it is. Are you still standing on your one foot? Are you holding on to a table? It's nobody's business if you've lost your balance or not. But the more you do this, the better you get. And quick reminder for Alzheimer's is use it or lose it. Anything that's complex, anything that is difficult, builds your neurology and builds your brain cells and helps to prevent you from getting Alzheimer's. Why do we get our kids moving? Because immediately following movement, we have an increase in blood flow, which seems to open a learning window for about 25 minutes. Why movement? Well, because we behave better with movement. Talk to so many teachers across the United States and they'll say, Kim, of course I'd like to get my kids moving, but the problem is I get in trouble. The problem is people cut PE. The problem is, well, we can't do that stuff anymore. What we now know is it's pretty clearly, the answer is pretty clear. When we move, we behave better. Classes with recess have more attentive students. Barrows has done 25 years worth of research on recess, that the more recess we do, the better we are at getting our kids to calm back down. Schools with 15 minutes of recess have less bullying and more physical activity and smoother transitions. That's Stanford who's doing that kind of research now. And finally, doctors are begging parents and teachers, please let the kids up. Please let them go out and play. More content, more time on task really doesn't seem to be improving their academics, but it is taking a toll on their health. So we have to get moving. We have to keep recess and activities in our classroom. I wish we had recess at middle school and high school, but integrating that into our classroom can potentially be the difference between night and day. When I got my kids moving in my class, when I had them play a game for a minute or two every 20 minutes, I could get them to learn whatever topic I wanted. It could be government. It could be federalism. All right, I didn't really spend a lot of time on federalism, but if I had them up and I had them moving and I had them playing, they were much more likely to pay attention and sit upright when we're learning about whatever our content is. But the only way we're going to get any kind of physical activity into our schools, the only way we're going to get physical activity into our classroom is if we lead with the research. And it's pretty conclusive. Physical activity is predicting standardized test scores. That's it, beginning and end. The higher physical fitness means higher SAT scores, no matter what the socioeconomic status is. As BMI increases, kids who have a 12 BMI or over, they're not on grade level. Our physically fit kids are on grade level. Kids who are overweight are not. Anywhere from 8 to 10 points. But as their physical activity increases, so does their attention and their academic performance. Attention, without attention, we do not focus. Without attention, we cannot store memory. It is physically impossible. And what Charles Hillman did was he wanted to know what effect does physical activity have on attention and academic performance. So on test day, what he did was he said, we want these kids, they were fourth graders, and now he's working with fifth and sixth, and every year he goes to a different level. What they're very clear on is 20 minutes of walking on a treadmill increases their performance on the academic achievement test. The other thing that's interesting, their brain seems to have put in less activity to carry out their the testing. What did they have them do? Well, they had them walk on a treadmill at 60%, which is not much. Walking at 60% is not really breaking much of the sweat. They can come back in after walking for 20 minutes at 60% and not stink up your classroom. This is amazing. This is a huge breakthrough that for 20 minutes, having kids walk increases their blood flow so they can think, so they can focus, so they can do what they need to do, and they performed at grade level. Now, in the event that you're thinking, wait a minute, I don't have any control over this. I don't have any control over whether our kids are physically fit or not physically fit. I just put those two things together. Charles Hillman wanted to know, kids who aren't physically fit, how do we handle their test scores? Well, one single moderately intense walk, remember 60%, barely even breaking a sweat. Kids who are overweight and out of shape who walked for 20 minutes, come in and perform on grade level. They did it. That counteracts what it is that our kids are doing or not doing, so that we in our classroom, whether you're a math teacher or whether you're an English teacher, we have our kids walk for 20 minutes on test day and they perform on grade level. Overweight, out of shape, it doesn't matter. Walking counteracts it. And why do we care about this? Because what we know is physical fitness allows us to excel in international comparisons. How sick are you guys of seeing those commercials that say, the United States, we perform 28 out of 29 countries in the world? Well, they're just not true. They're just not right. The United States tests every single kid in it. No other country does that. Other countries track their kids. They take their top performers, put their top performers into their testing. We, on the other hand, legally require everyone, whether you speak the language or not, it's irrelevant. It's like, what? You don't speak English? Take the test anyway. And we'll modify for you. What that means is we want to put you in another room by yourself where we'll read you the directions louder and more slowly. And those are the scores that are put in with all the other scores. What kind of a measurement, what kind of a comparison is that? But never mind. In a country where we're told we're 28 out of 29, all that goes out the window when we take a look at what happens with physically fit schools. In Naperville, Illinois, their students finished first in the world in science and sixth in the world in math. What the heck did they do? Well, their PE teacher said, well, if the research tells us getting our kids physically fit allows our kids to perform on grade level, let's get them physically fit. When they started their program, 33% of their kids were obese or overweight, like the rest of the country. 4 years later, 3% of their kids are obese, 97% are fit, and Naperville performs first in the world in science and sixth in math. Remember when that was announced on Education Nation? Oh, yeah, well, it wasn't. Just the same, all of us have to know this research is what's going to allow us to make a change. This kind of research is what's going to allow us to do what looks really weird, which is put movement or games or activities into every single classroom, not just PE. All of our classrooms. Why? Because movement provides executive function. It allows our brain to think, learn, focus, and do what it's supposed to do. This is what learning is. And if getting up and moving is going to do this for us, then we got to get up and we got to get moving. Only with research will people listen. What you're looking at is a PE for Life study that showed top left box. The more physically fit a kid is, the highest their score is in math, number 1, reading, number 2. Highest performance in math. Not new math tests, not new math books, not more training for teachers on a new math program, but they got their kids physically fit. And number 2, reading. Increasing fitness increases their reading. It happened in 5th grade, it happened in 7th grade, it happened in 9th grade. What that means is, the neuroscientists are right, it can be easily induced. After 20 minutes, we can literally see a change in the brain. And now what we know is it's not just a matter of slowing the aging process. It's potentially a matter of reversing it because it's good for the human brain. It's good for the hippocampus. Your hippocampus is your memory maker. Growth with exercise, most pronounced here in your hippocampus. That is the structure that allows you to remember tomorrow what you did today. Why? Because it increases your BDNF, your brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is the chemical you lose if you have Alzheimer's. Higher level of BDNF, longer amount of time you'll have access to your cognitive faculties. This hippocampus is the librarian for your memories. It forms all new memories. It allows for recall. In people who've had a surgery or a damage to the hippocampus, what we know is they may never store another memory. It records dates, facts, times, but very, very important in test-taking time. Only in the event that information is meaningful do we have recall. Movement, highly meaningful. Games, highly meaningful. Movement grows this area of the brain. Literally, it's a before and after photo. Now, the coolest picture on the slide is not really the photos, not the MRIs showing where in the brain is processing glucose and oxygen. But on the bottom right, Dr. Brady shares this research and shows that when they had participants come in and do some juggling, they wanted to know what happened in the brain when people juggled, which is an ultimate cross-lateral activity, an ultimate complex move. So participants started out at 0. See that first rectangle? They start off at 0. What they're looking at is their gray matter. The second square is how much gray matter increase inside of 6 weeks. So people who started juggling, and then at 6 weeks, what happens to their gray matter? So what you're looking at is before and after. The third square is the creepy square. This is when they are all instructed to stop juggling. So what you're looking at is use it, whoop, or lose it, whoop. Increases by 3% and then decreases without use. Next is another fabulous before and after photo. What we know about the brain is more mass is better. What you're looking at there on the left side is the outline of spine number 2. That's before movement. Look to the right. That's after. And that happens in about 48 minutes. Very cool before and after. This next slide, the line at the top, the 2 arrows, that's before exercise. The bottom one, that's after. So when I told you, look around for something you could toss, I want you to get it. Grab your ball, grab the beanbag, grab a Kleenex, wad it up. What I want you to do right now is toss it from your right hand to the next. Toss it from the right hand to the next. When we're done, I want you to try out a little bit of juggling, because after 48 minutes, the complex move and the complex activity of focusing your attention to do your juggling is going to grow neural connections. This hippocampus growing, this kind of move increases memory. What we know is people who are physically fit, we can predict their performance in math by about 38%. Dr. Victoria Cholmans did this research on 26,000 students in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They found the highest accuracy and performance was in math, and number 2 was English. Physical fitness increases all forms of memory and recall. And kids who are physically fit behave better. Behavior problems, suspensions decreased in Missouri by 63% and South Carolina by 83%. And teachers say, well, I don't have time for that. I just don't have time for pulling in movement to my curriculum. It's just that, well, we kind of do, because a reduction of 240 minutes had no effect on standardized test scores. But kids in PE did. Getting up and moving did increase standardized test scores. So where does this stuff come from? The only way we're going to get anybody to listen to this is to make sure they understand it's not more time on content. It's not more time doing the work for the standardized test scores. It's getting up and getting moving. But they have to understand why. They have to get that, number 1, when you get up and you move, it increases your blood flow. And not just anywhere. It increases blood flow in the frontal cortex so that people can think and focus and learn and recall and behave well. The second reason, movement, those feel-good chemicals or your learning chemicals. And when you move, you have the learning chemicals. When you move, it increases your ability to pay attention, which is why I challenged you. Please pay attention. Come back to me and pay attention. What we know about elite athletes is they pay attention. What we know about people who are physically fit, their brain naturally pays attention better than people who are not. That's what Dr. Charles Hillman at the University of Illinois found. When kids are physically fit, they pay attention to one thing significantly better. So if you have kids who aren't physically fit, their brains don't pay attention in the same way. And attention is your business. You are in charge of what you pay. I always used to think as a teacher, I was in charge. I'd run around, I'd jump around like, oh, if they're not paying attention to me, there's something wrong with me. No, you're in charge of your attention. You're in charge of your focus. Only people who are physically fit, people who get up and get moving, can focus and pay attention. And the moment you do, you change your physiology and you lower your stress. So if you multitask, or if you allow your brain to think about whatever it wants, you will not have the attention or focus or memory or recall or low levels of stress that you really deserve. So getting physically fit increases your blood flow, increases your chemicals, and that is where our memory comes from. If you complain about your memory, get up and get moving. You complain about your memory, get your sleep at night. It has an impact on your moods, your intelligence, your behavior, your academics. And it gets better. Why do we get up and moving? Very cool study out of Georgia. Had kids after school active, running around for 40 minutes for 3 months. What they did before and after was they tested their IQ. Before they went in and they did their 40-minute activity for 3 months, they had 3.8 lower IQs. After, they had a 3.8 increase. Can you imagine announcing that to your constituents, to the parent community, that what we know is with 40 minutes of movement after school, we can increase IQ? That's how you keep programs. It improves their ability to control attention, their behavior, and they make better choices, which is what we're after. It increases brain activity. That's thinking. That's decision-making. And I work with teachers a lot, and they'll say, Kim, this is a great idea, but my kids can be little jerks, and mine won't sit back down. Oh, yeah, because nobody else has jerky little students. We all have days and we have kids who are potentially wild. So here's what I say. You can't take away movement. You have to keep them moving, and you certainly can't take away a special, because what we know is that more time in specials increases test scores, not the other way around. Never has been. And it kills me because I'm a core teacher. I wish more time with me meant they did better on test scores. It's just that the research doesn't show that. So to cut movement and cut PE just doesn't work. So what we have to do is train them. We got up, we got moving. We got up, we juggled for 10 minutes. Now you sit back down. I taught 45-minute classes. I didn't juggle for 10 minutes. We juggled for 2. I have research that says 2 or 3 minutes up and moving as a break allows them to sit back down and open up that learning window. Like Hillman's research says, 25 minutes of learning. Number 2, use music to return. Number 3, you train them to focus on one thing of your choice. Training them on one thing means we train them to pay attention. Right now, everybody up, if you're not already standing. I want you to stand up, and I want you to focus only on breathing in, and then only on breathing out. And blow it all out. Blow out everything. And breathe in. This time, stand on your left foot. Breathe in. And then breathe out. This becomes your mechanism for transition. There are 2, 3, 4 different activities. The choice cannot be to cut movement because we can't calm them back down. What we've got to choose is to get them up so that they stop digesting their brains, right? And when we all understand that there's a way in which that we can transition them to moving, we get that there's a transition to not moving again. Because the effect of specialized movements on our brain, on education, on our cognition, on slowing our trek toward any kind of a dementia can't be underestimated. Specialized moves are really, truly, that's the future. That's the future of movement. That's the future of brain health. The latest research is telling us balance and coordination indicate our cognition, because cognitive or academic neurons are your motor neurons. So if you're still standing up, stand on whatever leg you weren't standing on before. And after you're done with this webinar, I want you to talk to someone while you try to keep your balance. It's harder to keep your balance while you are talking. That's how you know that they're not making this up. It engages your prefrontal cortex. Using very sophisticated movement, standing on one leg means that you have to focus and you have to engage the prefrontal cortex. The more you engage the prefrontal cortex, the better you are at engaging the prefrontal cortex. And when you train your students to focus on one thing, like I'm trying to train you to focus on me and not the things that you brought to do while this webinar was going on, while you're training them to focus on one thing, the cool thing is they get better at focusing on one thing. And about 10 years of research on the effects of meditation on the frontal cortex are so inspiring that people who meditate, meaning people who focus on one thing at a time, are better at doing, well, everything. Controlling their stress, thinking under pressure, doing their work, lowering the procrastination, improving their self-discipline, which means not eating whatever you want, which is usually what people who don't have a lot of self-discipline do. This integration, this left and right hemisphere working together, provides for magic. This integration improves the brain's ability to coordinate. It coordinates your eyes, and coordinating your eyes means you can track. And tracking means you can comprehend. Increasing comprehension, reading and tracking, the faster you read, the better your comprehension. This integration allows us math calculation because our right hemisphere is our spatial reasoning. Your left hemisphere, your ability to write about it. And today we want our students to write about what math they're doing, which for females is a different task. Females seem to integrate left and right faster than males do. Males seem to be able to do math, but writing about it can be a trick. Articulating and forming responses means integration is very important because your left hemisphere is where for 95% of our population, our language resides in our left hemisphere. Thinking about what's going on, putting together what you're doing, reading your math, doing your schoolwork, and then being able to put it into writing means the left and the right have to cooperate together. That's the magic. Forcing our brain to pay attention means we can integrate and have our academic readiness. Now, this is a study out of the University of Exeter, which is an elementary school in England. What they had were about 40 kids who were at least 2 years behind grade level. And what they did was they said, all right, let's pull the 40 kids out of their regular classroom. They said, but not so fast. Let's do some whole language and some phonics. But in one half, let's have them do some balancing activities. How about in half of them, we have them toss a beanbag and stand on an unstable surface. So I don't have an unstable surface for you. So I want you to pick one foot, right or the left, stand on it right now. I asked you to pick up an item in your hand, and I want you to toss it from one hand to the next. That's what they had these kids do for 10 minutes. They tossed a beanbag from the left hand to the right. When it goes to the left hand, it stimulates the right hemisphere. When it goes to the right hand, stimulates the left, increases blood flow in the frontal cortex, and helps to stimulate the motor neurons that allow the integration of information. In the last 20 years, what is your guess? Do you think kids do more balance and coordination activities or less balance and coordination activities? They seem to spend a lot of time inside. So what we have are kids who haven't had these kinds of complex moves, and they come into class and don't have balance and coordination, and they don't have the academic readiness, and it makes a teacher work twice as hard. I told you, lead with your research. You're still on one foot, tossing one hand to the next. You ready for this? In 6 weeks, the kids in the cross-lateral activity, the kids who tossed one hand in one beanbag, other hand with a beanbag, they hit grade level. Inside of 6 weeks, these kids hit grade level. And they didn't call it a cross-lateral activity. Kids didn't call it a really good idea for increasing blood flow in the frontal cortex so that they can have an increase in reading comprehension and do well in school and be able to sit down and behave better. Kids called it fun. But for the rest of us, the idea that this could improve balance and coordination and the neural pathways, so now we've set them up to be good learners, can you imagine that we actually have an option? It's something we can do with our students, that we have a change that we could make. I don't care if you teach chemistry. I don't care if you teach kindergarten. That getting our kids up and getting them moving every 20 minutes, and more frequently if you're a kindergarten teacher. Our 5-year-olds have to get up every 5 to 7 minutes. 6-year-olds every 6 to 8 minutes. 7-year-olds get how that works. And I know it's depressing. I have kindergarten teachers say, no, but it really does explain a lot. I was in a training, and one of the high school teachers says to me, you don't understand, it's high school. I teach business. Are you telling me I should get my kids up every 20 minutes? And I thought, okay, I'm ready, but I didn't answer. Another client was sitting in class and said, oh no, I don't get my kids up every 20 minutes. He said, I teach high school. I teach English. He said, I get my kids up every 10. I don't go 20. He said, we get more done now than we ever did before. And I don't have any discipline problems because they're up, they're going, they're moving, they integrate, they get along with each other. But we'll never get away with this kind of a cool change if you don't lead with your research. Everybody, especially your students, have to understand it increases movement, games, cross-lateral activities, walking on a balance board, standing on a BOSU increases blood flow. That increases chemistry and the chemicals that allow us to think, focus, process. It increases oxygen, energy. It lowers our stress and creates a community. I happen to think our kids need more relationships. There's basically no way to hang around with people and throw around beanbags and not build some kind of relationship with each other. Relationships are the topic that academics need to take a look at. What we know is that's your number one indicator. If your kids can build a relationship with your teacher, that's how we predict whether they're going to make K-12 education. I say use movement, use fitness, use your activities, and this decreases aggression and bullying behaviors because it improves their behavior. It improves their ability to make good choices, as evidenced by lots of research. That 68% fewer kids are kicked out of school, that 38% or 83% fewer are suspended. But we have to support movement in our classrooms. We have to make sure everybody understands these are the reasons why we have to bring this in. And I don't just think we should bring these moves in to our classrooms. I think we need to bring it into our boardrooms. I think in any business, everybody needs to understand getting up and getting moving. And by the way, Google is doing this. Google brings in or is now instituting regular movement every hour. And the new home of the walking desks. This is the future. This is the way we have to go. Bringing movement back in, because it's not just in our school, it's got to be in our home. And what if making this one change changes our belief system? What if this change changes our moods? What if this gives us a hope that we're waiting for in education? And I'll tell you what, we can afford this one. You can get up and you can get moving every 20 minutes or more frequently with very little money. So I hope that you have stood more than you have sat. If you haven't, I'm going to ask every single person, please, tonight, would you promise me every single person on this call will take a 30-minute walk with somebody you care about or someone you don't care about? I don't care. Just go and get a walk. You're going to feel like a different person. I want you to check your energy now. Do you feel different than you did before? Do you feel the same as you did before? Because you're in charge of your energy and you're in charge of your students, and there's no reason that by the end of the day you might not be a little bit healthier than you were before. All right, and I have one confession I was going to tell you earlier. If this topic irritates you because maybe you don't like to work out, or if this topic irritates you because maybe you're overweight, I just want you to know I weighed 50 pounds more 10 years ago than I do now. So I think somewhere on my website I have the before and after photos, or if you go to my TED Talk on my website, you'll see my before and after photos. So I have a very close relationship with the idea of moving and getting physically fit. I just want you to know, every day that you get up, if you just do one thing to be healthier, you just do one thing in your classroom to be a better teacher, that gradual change can take you to places you never, ever expected. So I'll stop now. In the event that anybody has a question, I'm ready.
Well, thank you very much, Kim. And just a reminder to our audience, we do have some time for questions. We'll get to as many of them as we can. And on the right-hand side of your screen, you can type in any questions you might have. A reminder, they're only visible to me, the moderator, so feel free to ask him any questions. We've had a number of questions wondering about if the slides are going to be available. If you've registered, all of you that are on the webinar right now have registered for the webinar, so you will get a link to the slides and to a recorded version of the webinar. I know there's a lot of folks who would like to take this to their staff and to show it to them. So Kim, our first question, you mentioned to always lead with the research, and for PE teachers out there who'd like to get this type of a movement going within their school, any suggestions or recommendations as to how to approach their principal or their administration to kind of get some movement on this?
Yeah, first of all, you have to make sure you respect the idea that your principal has to have research and your principal needs deniability. Deniability sounds funny, But principals are under a lot of pressure, and if they've got 30 people to please or 200 people at a high school or in a college, they need to know that everybody is on board. So first thing I would say is make sure the principal can say, oh my gosh, this is where the research comes from. I'm a John Rady fan. His book, The Spark, will give you significant amounts of research. Do not hand the book to the principal. Go through and pick 3 compelling studies. I like the idea of Naperville scoring #1 in science and #6 in math. I would lead with that one. Second thing to keep in mind is you cannot be the messenger. I don't care how much respect you have in your school, you can't do it. You have to hire someone else to come in. Of course, you know, I have a vested interest. I'd love to come and work with your staff, but even if you just hire someone off the street and say, hey, you dude, no one knows who you are, come here, let me tell you what to say. You cannot be a prophet in your own home. What I hear from my clients is, I've been telling them for years, and then you come in and now they'll do it. You cannot be a prophet in your own home, and you can't get someone from your district. You have to get somebody from the outside to come in and say, turns out this is what the research says. Third, in the presentation, make sure every single person gets up. Make sure everybody feels what it's like to get up and move, and call their attention to lethargy before, energy after, laughing, giggling, feeling the change, because those chemicals are your learning and memory chemicals.
Great. Another question related somewhat. So physical education teachers obviously have a passion for this, and they have their physical education class, and it sounds like we're talking about 2 pieces here within the school. We've got our PE classes, and then we're talking about some classroom activity breaks. What should and what does the role of the PE teacher play in all of this? You know, and based on what you said, how they shouldn't be the prophet or the person who's bringing this message. What you know, what should their role be, and you know, how do they get that going? You mentioned bringing somebody in from the outside, but how does the PE class kind of fit into the whole equation?
Well, the PE class is fundamental. It's a given. It's a sacred cow. No one touches PE. So if we have a special something in the school, we never cut PE, ever. It is very tempting for schools to say, oh, well, they'll go without PE this week so we can bring in this special geology presentation. Absolutely not. Every school, what I hope the message is every school has got to make sure that they have PE every day. And the PE for Life research is very, very conclusive. It's at peforlife.com, PE4life.com or .org, that PE every day is going to increase those test scores. So in every school, PE is a given. Beyond that, PE teachers are busy like everybody else. The people on the staff can't necessarily go to the PE teacher and say, hey, all right, well, I understand I need to do kind of what you do throughout my presentation so that they get what I'm doing. That's not going to happen, and if it does, the PE teacher can't do it. So to be a resource, I think, is above and beyond. But every single PE teacher just has to be viewed by the staff as that's integral. That's like running water. We've got running water, we've got electricity, and we have PE. And that's why I imagine a PE teacher can't stand up and share this message. That's why they have to have someone else come in and say, PE is PE. If they're also a resource, they're also a resource. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, I think you did, yeah.
Okay.
Another question, a lot of PE teachers have, you know, kind of a partner or close teacher who's in the classroom. Any experience with working with a classroom teacher to pilot some of these ideas, or to kind of get it going within a, you know, at a smaller scale, to demonstrate that it does work and to try to get some advocacy at the classroom level? Any experience with that? Oh,
for 10 years. Every day, every week, every month, I have client after client after client who does it. But remember, these are not teachers who need PE teachers. This is PE teachers who have a friend who are willing to go into it. Is that what the question is?
Yes.
They have a friend who's willing to do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to need 6 weeks to take a look. At the end of an hour, the PE teacher can come back and say, hey, what happened? And I would also recommend starting off in a mild way, do some kind of a movement activity that is not maybe, you know, dodgeball. which is banned in, 13 states, you might start by having them get up and stretch. You might have them stand up and get their balance on one foot. You might have them toss a ball from one hand to the next. 10 minutes on content or 20 minutes on content, and then a 2 or 3 minute break where they're doing some kind of a mild activity that the teacher feels comfortable with. At the end of an hour, send the PE teacher back. Say, how did it go? But remember, teachers have to have good discipline. Have to. Without good discipline, no teaching, no education, no academics ever happen. That's not about movement in a classroom. Bringing in movement is just going to test whether you have discipline or not. So training your students and knowing the first time is going to take longer, and the first time might feel uncomfortable because they're going to be kind of wild, a little loud, a little bit silly. Make sure you use music to help to transition them and tell them, we're going to get up and move first, then we're going to sit back down. Having a PE teacher by my side would be great, but no teacher has to have that.
Okay, great. In your opinion, what are your thoughts on stability balls as chairs as a way to get kids moving?
Stability balls don't get kids moving, but what those stability balls do is it's a cross-lateral activity, so if kids use it as a chair, their right leg and their left leg are going to integrate and coordinate so they have a high level of blood flow in their frontal cortex. This started in Palo Alto, California, with special ed students. And what the teacher said was, oh my gosh, this is awesome. What we now know is we can have kids sit on footballs, and because they have more blood flow from the footballs, that we don't have to give them breaks as often. And I went, oh, bummer. We still have to get them up, and we still have to get them moving. The caveat to the footballs is when you look at a room full of 30 footballs with kids on them, you're going to have 30 different moving heads all over the room. Some teachers will say it drives them crazy. So if you're going to bring in a football, remember you have to teach discipline. The discipline is everybody's going to sit and they're not going to bounce up and down if it bugs you. Second problem I've had clients run into is there is a certain amount of possessive, that's mine, that's my ball, don't touch my ball, and it irritated the teachers, so they throw out the baby with the bathwater. They throw out the football with a good idea of movement. It can be done. I think it should be done. You just need to know there are going to be pitfalls. So what you have to handle is discipline. You have to be still, not bounce around, or everybody has a football, and just know that there is going to be a potential discipline thing. He's touching mine. He's touching mine. No, you're touching mine. So they popped the balls and sent them home. Broke my heart.
Too bad. Yeah. Okay. We're coming down here to the end of our questions. One quick question. I'm wondering if people can follow you on Twitter.
Yeah.
And should they go to your website to find all the information to follow you on, or what's your Twitter handle?
It's Kim at Kim Bevel. And let me see, I think I have it in the presentation. So anybody who has access to the presentation, or everybody who has access, you just go back a couple slides. Let me see if I can get to it. It's the one that says blood flow fuels executive function, and I honestly believe everyone in the world needs to know that blood flow fuels executive function. I don't care if you're 5 or 75 or 95. Improving memory, moods, intelligence, academics, and behavior, and if everybody tweets it on a regular basis, yes. Yeah. So I am Kim Bevel. There it is. There's my Twitter.
Okay. Last question before we get to the winner of our Active and Healthy Schools classroom activity cards. What equipment would you suggest to purchase to give staff in their classrooms? Like if you had a basic pack of, you must have this. You mentioned beanbags throughout your presentation. Is there some piece or some small amount of equipment you'd suggest for classroom activity?
Yeah, so my question is, how much money do we have to spend? I live by the rule of ask forgiveness, not permission, I hope. I'm not going to get in big trouble saying this. Ask forgiveness. A 2x4 is potentially, what, $5 or a couple 2x4s? You put a 2x4 in your classroom up against the walls so that when people are moving around, they're up against the walls. And now it's, 20 minutes of presentation. You pull those out from the wall, and I'd have them walk the balance beam. Have them walk the balance beam, have them toss bean bags. Obviously, you guys got the idea for bean bags. Have them close their eyes and maintain their balance and toss the beanbag. More complex is better. I would get beach balls in my classroom. I would get those little light balls. I don't know. I think you get them for $1 at Target or $1 at the dollar store. Any different kind of ball you can get into your classroom. Of course, beanbags, a 2x4. I like wobble boards. I think I bought one for $12 at Target. You can spend as much as $100 on a BOSU. A BOSU looks like a half of a large ball. It looks like a half of a stability ball. BOSU, B-O-S-U, stands for both sides utilized, which is cross-lateral, or like Harvard calls it crosstalk. Those are $100 at Target, but I'm saying BOSU because if you go to BOSU.com, they'll have about 1,000 different ideas for activities. My number one choice for all teachers and all parents and all business owners would be bring in activities that don't require equipment. Otherwise, your budget will dictate what you get to do.
Great. Well, that is the end of our webinar for today. Thank you, Kim. And a couple of things here. We have some questions about the certificate of participation that will be emailed out to you here at the end of our webinar. And at this time, we're going to announce the winner of our Active and Healthy Schools activity cards. Before I do that, a reminder, our webinars happen almost always the third week of every month, so keep an eye out for our next topic. It should be showing up here in not too long, and we hope we can see you at another webinar in the future. Our winner is Brett Meyer, PE and health teacher at Botkins Local School in Ohio. He won the Active and Healthy Schools activity card pack of $619. Again, thank you to everybody who joined us today. We hope you will join us again for a future Go for Solutions webinar. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabor.